Her name was Evelyn, and for most of her life, she believed she was ordinary. An ordinary mother of two. An ordinary wife in a quiet suburb. An ordinary woman who woke up before sunrise to pack school lunches and rush through the morning chaos that every parent knows. But life has a way of choosing the most ordinary people for the most extraordinary battles. And on a cold morning in November, everything changed for her. She still remembered the way the doctor paused before speaking. The way the air felt too still. The way her heartbeat became loud enough to drown out the world. It is cancer. Those two words rewrote her entire existence. She walked out of the hospital feeling as if time had folded into something unrecognizable. Like she had stepped through a doorway into a life she never asked for. Her hands shook as she opened her car door. She thought of her children. Of their small backpacks resting by the entrance at home. Of her daughter's laughter echoing in the hallway. And in that moment something inside her cracked. Fear. Raw and suffocating. But fear was only the beginning. In the days that followed, she tried to hide her shaking voice. She tried to stay strong. But strength is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to walk forward even when the ground crumbles beneath you. Her husband held her hand in the silence of night. Her mother whispered prayers in the kitchen. Her children watched her with wide, confused eyes. And she felt like she was failing all of them. But the truth is she was becoming someone none of them had ever seen before. Someone forged in fire. Treatment began with its own rhythm. The long, sterile hallways. The sound of machines humming. The cold needle entering her arm. The weight of exhaustion that made her body feel foreign. She watched her hair fall in strands across her pillow. She watched her reflection change day by day. And for a while she felt like she was disappearing. Like the woman she used to be had been erased. But something unexpected happened. In those hospital rooms surrounded by patients fighting battles just as terrifying as hers, she discovered a new kind of strength. Not loud, not dramatic, but quiet, stubborn, unbreakable. There was a boy who smiled through every treatment, even though he was just 11. There was an elderly woman who knitted scarves for nurses because it gave her hope. There was a father who brought a small radio every week and played music from his childhood. Evelyn watched them. She listened, and she realized that pain does not diminish the human spirit. It reveals it. One afternoon, she sat beside a woman named Grace. Grace had no family, no visitors, no one to hold her hand. Evelyn watched the fatigue in her eyes, the loneliness etched into every breath. And something inside Evelyn shifted. This battle was not just hers. The room was filled with people just like her. Scared, fighting, trying, and she knew she could not stay silent. As the weeks turned into months, Evelyn began recording her journey quietly on her phone. Not the glamorous parts, not the brave smile, but the real moments. The trembling hands. The nights she could not sleep because the fear whispered too loudly. The laughter she shared with nurses who became like family. The truth of what it meant to fight a war inside your own body. She shared these videos online. At first, only a few people watched. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Not because her story was perfect, but because it was real. The world does not need perfect stories. It needs honest ones. People started writing to her. From small towns and big cities. From hospital beds and kitchen tables. They said her words helped them breathe through their own storms. They said her vulnerability made them feel less alone. And for the first time since her diagnosis, she felt something like purpose blooming again. But the turning point came the day she learned that Grace had passed away. Not because the cancer won, but because she could not afford the treatment she needed. Evelyn sat in her car and cried until her body could produce. No more tears. How could someone fight so hard and still lose because of money? How many stories had ended this way? How many lives had been swallowed by silence? That night, Evelyn opened her laptop, her hands still trembling, and she wrote a message to her growing community. She wanted to raise funds for patients like Grace, people who had no one, people slipping through the cracks. People whose stories deserved a chance to continue. She did not expect much. Maybe a few donations. A few kind messages. But the world surprised her. Within hours, the donations began to pour in. Small amounts from students. Large amounts from strangers who had watched loved ones suffer. Messages filled with hope, prayers, memories. Within a week, they had raised more money than she imagined. Within a month, they crossed a threshold that made her breath catch. Within a year, her small idea became a movement.
Millions raised.
Not for hospitals. Not for corporations. But directly for patients who needed it most. People who were fighting the same storm she fought. People who now felt seen. Evelyn did not feel like a hero. She still woke up some mornings terrified of the future. She still felt the ache in her bones from the treatments. She still looked in the mirror and saw the scars. But she also saw something else. She saw a woman who refused to surrender. She saw a woman who had turned her pain into a lifeline for others. She saw a story that was bigger than fear. As time passed, her health began to stabilize. The clouds of uncertainty lifted little by little. She could walk without feeling breathless. She could hold her children and not feel fragile. She could laugh again. Really laugh. The kind of laughter that comes only after surviving something that tried to break you. But even when her life returned to something like normal, she did not walk away from the mission she had built. She continued raising funds. She met with families. She listened to stories. She cried with strangers who felt like family. And every time, she felt tired. She remembered Grace. She remembered the boy with the brave smile. She remembered the faces she saw in the waiting room. Those who fought. Those who survived. Those who did not. She carried them with her. One evening she stood on a small stage at a charity event. Not glamorous. Just a simple community hall with folding chairs and donated lights. People gathered because they believed in her mission. Evelyn looked at them, her voice trembling. And she said something she had learned the hard way. That life is not measured by how perfectly we live, but by how deeply we love. That the scars we carry are proof of our survival. And survival is not just staying alive. It is choosing to hope even when hope feels impossible. The crowd rose to their feet, not because she was famous, not because she had accomplished something impossible, but because she had chosen compassion over despair. Because millions of dollars had been raised not through strategy or power, but through honesty, through vulnerability, through one woman who refused to let pain close her heart. Today her mission continues. Families who once felt hopeless now receive treatments because of her community. Children who once had no options now have a fighting chance. Parents who once sat in silence now find support. And all of this began with a woman who thought she was ordinary. A woman who faced a storm she never wanted. A woman who discovered her purpose in the darkest place imaginable. Her name was Evelyn. A cancer survivor. A mother. A fighter. Someone who turned her pain into light. Someone who proved that a single brave heart can ignite a movement. Someone who changed the world not through perfection, but through humanity. And her story continues every time a patient receives help. Every time a family breathes again. Every time someone chooses hope because she chose to speak. This is her legacy, not carved in stone, but written in the lives she touched. And somewhere tonight, she sits at her kitchen table, the soft glow of a lamp illuminating her face. Her children asleep. Her husband beside her. The hum of a quiet house reminding her that life is still beautiful. She places her hand over the scar on her chest. A reminder of everything she survived. And she whispers a silent promise. That as long as she breathes, she will never stop fighting for those who are still in the storm. Because courage is not loud. It is steady. It is patient. It is choosing to rise again. And again. And again.